Hello, and welcome to the Morgan Latif Spotlight Sessions. This week, I'm your host, Sam Latif, and my guest this week is Andrea Di Paola. Andrea is the current VP at Essity, managing a 1.2 billion euro business unit. We talk about his fascinating journey, both managing commercial and large operations teams, and how that led to him holding his current position, and how important it was to take risks, not only in changing functions, but also moving countries with his family, and how that helped him achieve the success that he's had. Interestingly, we also talk about how the importance of understanding the end-to-end supply chain, particularly in a volatile geopolitical climate. We talk about the importance of innovation, even when you're in a commoditized market, and that how that can lead to wins, and also lessons that he will impart on his son, given the evolving nature and landscape of the business environment. So overall, a wide-ranging conversation, and hopefully you find it as valuable as I did. Let's get into it.
Hi, and good afternoon, everyone. So it's a big pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, look, as you know, as part of our leadership and spotlight sessions, we always like to showcase somebody who's had a really interesting career path. And I think we're going to be covering a few different topics, not just your career path, but a little bit about what you've seen from the vantage point of your kind of executive role in Essity. But where I always like to start off, Andrea, is a little bit one on the intro you could give of yourself is obviously going to do it more justice than I ever could. So maybe if you can give us a bit of an introduction to yourself first and foremost.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Andrea Di Paola. I'm Italian. I would say even more specific, I come from Sicily, so from the real south of Italy. This is where I basically started. This is where I've been until I was 23. So
Okay.
basically always in Sicily because I also started in Sicily. And then after basically I left and I was more or less never back because I've been always working around first in Italy and then around the world. So I'm married. I have my wife and a king called Antonio. So
Okay.
this
Nice.
is the most important project I'm busy in my life. So it's my family. So not only my son, but as well my how to make my wife happy. And I'm passionate about as well business and working in environments together with other people. And this is what make me really passionate and what make me happy when I wake up in the day during the morning and I take a flight to go somewhere for a working reason. So this is all about Andrea. And in general, I'm a sailor as well. I pretend to be a sailor as well. I
Right.
like sailing when I'm free time. So during the weekend and during the summer. So.
Okay, great. Well, let's deep dive a little bit into a couple of those things. So, one, interestingly, you said you obviously were born in Italy and then you ventured out. I'm curious to understand a little bit, firstly, about that decision that you made early in your life to sort of go out, venture out. How did that really shape your career as well?
I think that there was Sergio Marchionne, that was the ex CEO of Fiat Chrysler. Now it's Stellantis, that always say that traveling and working abroad it's very difficult because it's pulling you out of the comfort zone, but it's much better than doing any master or any executive course because it's giving a real life opportunity to experience something totally different when you don't have your family, where you don't have your friends, where the language is different, the food is different. So you really need to get out of the daily comfort zone and
Mhm.
try to, let's say, experience yourself new things and mix culture and appreciate what you're not used to, and that is giving the best of your career. I still remember, the first day when I went from Rome to Sweden. So basically, it was December when I started in SCA. It was at the time was SCA, now Essity, 13 years ago. So after working a lot for Procter and Gamble in Rome, and then I moved, and in December I went to Sweden. I still remember that when I arrived, there was everything okay. It was dark, of course, was in the nights. The morning after I woke up, and of course, there was a 1 meter snow. And then
Mhm.
I called the plant manager at the time and said, "I'm really sorry, I cannot come today because it's snowing." And the answer was, "If you don't want to come, it's okay, but just that you know, here for 250 days in a year is snowing. So it's
Right.
this is the problem. So this is different culture, different things. I always thought that snow was something on the television. So and then when you experience the reality, so
Yeah.
that's the
Uh,
difference.
Yeah, really interesting. And how did also, I mean, you said you've worked globally, you've also, held positions managing different regions. You've I think have been based out of Germany. You were before at P&G and also working across different, has there been any particular cultural nuances that you've picked up that also have helped you manage teams internationally or manage international teams in general?
I think, let's say, I have something from every place where I've been, and that is very, very honest. I mean, I experience a lot in Sweden, and I'm still working in a Swedish company. And I have one thing that I like because I started when I was in Sweden. Before I join a country, I always do this intercultural training
Hmm.
because I always believe that to understand the historical reason on why the country is behaving in a certain way is helping you to understand it to deal better from a business point of view. I've done this in Sweden, I've done this in Slovakia, I've done this in Germany, I've done this in China. So all the time you understand why people are behaving in a certain way. And if you understand the deep reason why, this is really helping you a lot to understand how to drive things and how to have the right impact in an organization. I mean, for example, in Sweden, I always learn, and that's what I pick with me, so that it's not just jumping on the table the best way to achieve results. As an
Right.
Italian,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you want to drive things, when you want to lead things, you always jump on the table to,
yeah,
to make your point, while the Swedish approach is totally different. And there is not right or wrong. It's just a different approach that can help you to achieve the same results.
yeah.
And that is what I learned from Sweden. In Slovakia, I mean, I from the historical reason, I really learn how, let's say, the really hard work can help you to achieve even something incredible, some incredible results. So, and being proud about the really hard work, working hours and hours and hours, be consistent to achieve what you have in your mind. This really about the Slovak people. So in every culture, I was able to pick up something really interesting, and this helping me on a really daily basis when
Yeah.
I work now in multiple countries.
Yeah, really interesting. And you're right. I think, we work with Swedish companies, with Italian companies, and even from a corporate culture perspective, they're almost sitting at the opposite ends of the spectrum. And again, that's not to generalize, but I think, as you said, it's about putting yourself in an environment, in a situation that is your frames of reference are so different that you eventually begin to understand, empathize, and then you can better use that to lead. Really interesting to hear. And look, fast forwarding a little bit, you also then started your career and famously you went to P&G. And I've had a lot of also really great experiences working with P&G alumni in particular. You know, why do you think it's such a good school in general when it comes to really shaping people that, particularly in the consumer goods sector, right? I think they're very well received in the market when either somebody's been at P&G or is at P. What would you characterize as being the reasons why it's been such a good school for so many people?
Yeah, I think it's for me was a master. As you say, it's a school. It's the best school in different field. I mean, I came from manufacturing, but as well in marketing, in sales. It's a big school. I think Procter and Gamble have this system when even if you are 22, 23, just after university, you feel you can make a big impact in the organization. You feel part of a big family, something that is much bigger than you, and it's strange, but having even your mom watching the advertising of
Right.
your own company is making you proud to belong to such a company.
Hmm.
Such proudness, you easily move in dedication to make incredible things, to achieve incredible results. And Procter& Gamble is helping you to drive really a performance mindset and to lead eventually a performance organization and performance team. So this let's say being proud to work for a big company with such a multinational, such a multi-billion brands. So plus the fact that you can make quickly your impact, and you made this connection. I'm creating an impact despite 10, 23, and 24 for such a big company. And then you have this monster, I call monster of teacher in P&G. So people that have been working for years in different field, in different part of the organization that are really dedicating to you. There is this people dedication that it's really helping the young generation, the young talent to develop, to grow, leaving the space for creating an impact, but as well teaching and supporting when it's needed. I think this combination is making P&G still one of the best school that is existing in the between across the different multinational company.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, you touched on it a little bit in that you've also worked across different functions, and even in your most recent company, Essity, very rarely have I seen somebody go from a VP of global operations to a VP of sales and marketing. So I was also curious to understand a little bit how that move came about, because it's not normally we do those kind of positions. Very rarely do you see, even if an internal move, that occurs. So I was curious to sort of see, how did you find that move? Why did you take on that challenge, and how that's helped in your career?
Yeah. I first of all, let me share with you that manufacturing operation is my core, is my heart. Going and working on the shop floor. It's really what make me happy. When I get the majority of the energy. But I always believe, and I'm still believe that to work for a consumer goods company, you need to know how to produce and you need to know how to sell. These are the key of the company. And that is where, let's say, I started. I was always curious to understand with my sales colleagues, how can I help you? How can we move manufacturing from being a cost center? Normally, it's perceived as a cost center, more as a value creator. How can we create even from operation manufacturing more value for the business, for the sales organization? And then suddenly I say it's okay, but then I need to experience myself, because thanks to this experience in manufacturing, I think I can apply a lot of the things that I've learned in manufacturing, this rigorous problem solving, this being speed into application into the sales operation. And together at that time with my manager, we have created a path. I've done an executive MBA
Hmm.
because first I wanted to get some insight in how sales and marketing operation are working. And then I got the opportunity from Volker Zoll, that I will always thank him, that is the president of Consumer Goods, to lead the private label organization in personal care. So basically all the product produced in baby, femi, and Inco product in Essity for the private brand. And now since May, I'm responsible for sales and marketing for the biggest region, for the region Central East. So I always consider region Central East is Netherlands, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, the full East Europe for consumer goods is 1.2 billion euros. So I totally now I can say I closed my transition fully from operation to full sales and marketing, because now I'm fully responsible for the sales and marketing organization. And let's say this really it's because it's inside me, this moving out of the comfort zone, experiencing something totally different. The best leadership exercise is when you really are out below, down on the shit. So you really are not sleeping over the night, and then suddenly you are able to come out together with your team and solve a certain situation. And the less you know, the more you can experience the leadership job, because the more you have to delegate, you are forced to delegate, you are forced to listen and multiple people telling you exactly what is their point of view. The more you elevate yourself into a leadership strategic role, more than being the day-to-day business and telling the people what to do. And that's for me was one of the biggest learning I took, moving from operation to sales and marketing.
Yeah. And there's always this push and pull, you always have the kind of the generalization that commercial people overpromise, and then it's the operations people that have to then deliver on those kind of big orders. But then you kind of seen both sides of it, and you can probably have a lot more, you have credibility both with the commercial people and also with the operations stakeholders.
Yeah.
So I imagine how that has led also to kind of having that kind of wider scope, managing a region. And so yeah.
And I also believe that in this complex world, in this complex environment, this end-to-end understanding, so understanding from how the product is produced, how even to purchase the raw material, until how to make your customer, your shopper, and the consumer happy, this end-to-end understanding is key to take the right decision, to drive the proper decision making, because otherwise you miss, let's say, some piece of information. And I always believe that the executive of the future will need to have this broader experience. I give you a strange insight. My manager, it is exactly Volker Zoller, the one that promote me in this position in sales and marketing. He has done as well the same path. He was
Okay.
in manufacturing, and then he led as well the sales and marketing organization. I think this end-to-end thinking is one of the key soft skill that somehow we will need to develop in the future across the different MCG company.
Yeah, because I think, as I said, the CPG, like a lot of industries, are kind of suffering from it's still a bit of that recalibration since the kind of the upticks in COVID, and it's been a tough, a lot of sub segments in consumer have also faced some headwinds. You're a big believer that that end-to-end understanding really helps navigate those tricky. Can you elaborate a little bit more onto how, for example, over the recent years that has helped you navigate kind of tricky market conditions?
But think about even during COVID. I mean, COVID was an experience, was a shock that at the
Mm.
beginning was just one-off, and now I would say every year we have a crisis. And one day it's the crisis of energy or raw material, the other day it's the war that is creating as well other type of issue. But during this type of period, like for example COVID, the complexity of the assortment was a key element because of course you need to maximize your throughput because we are producing toilet paper. This was the period where it was even difficult to have toilet paper on the shelf because of course there was a huge peak of demand. People were storing toilet paper at home because you never know what could happen. And
Yeah,
at
yeah.
that time we had done a big exercise end to end. How we satisfy still having the key SKU for the shopper and consumer, but try to reduce the complexity of the supply chain that we can maximize the throughput. In this way we can have always product on the shelf for our consumer and shopper during this period. This was one perfect example of end-to-end exercise that was needed in order to manage this and to overcome this period of COVID. But even in the latest period, I mean, every type in our business, considered between 40 and 70% of the cost is sitting in supply chain. So how can you even explain to your customer? How can you explain to the different retailer how your cost is moving in this huge variability we have currently with the raw material development, with energy development, where you don't know how your cost is managed in the supply chain part. So how the different elements of cost in the supply chain. By knowing this, you can easily talk with your customer. You can easily explain to your customer why a certain innovation is a key innovation for the market and why I mean it's so difficult to be produced on a certain line. So
Yeah.
you have the full understanding from a consumer benefit of an innovation, what the trade can get out of innovation, until what's the complexity this innovation is bringing in supply chain. Having this full view, I mean, is creating a huge advantage for yourself when you talk with the customer as well.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I know you've also talked about when we've spoken before the importance of, I said, not understanding that, but helping decommoditize some products, focusing a lot on innovation. That has helped you, in particular, in Essity, to navigate that tricky time. And as you said, kind of going back to how you always emphasize to the importance of kind of putting yourself in a different or in an area which you're not familiar with, to try to build up competencies in all areas to help you navigate, has really helped your career. Do you think it's advisable to go through first operations and then commercial, or the other way around, or does it not matter? What is your suggestion, having been there and done it?
I think that let's say there is not one path. You can go first to sales and then go to operation, or vice versa. So in general, I always say that you need to have a core competence.
Mhm.
A core competence can be sales, can be marketing, can be supply chain. In my case, my core competence is clearly supply chain because I spend majority of the time in supply chain. Then when you move in another area, in this case, I move to sales and marketing. I mean, it's difficult that you will build a same core competence like the one you had in supply chain in my case.
Mhm.
But for sure, there you can leverage on the learning on supply chain. You can leverage on the leadership learning you took in a different position, and then you can give a lot from a leadership strategy end-to-end thinking point of view, and you can get a lot as well from your organization in understanding the main elements of, in this case, how sales and marketing is working. So, and this is, let's say, building your core competence and going across more to experience more your leadership skill. But there is not one preferred way. It's more important to fix in mind what's your core competence, and then be having the courage and as well the company supporting you to go across and more experience your leadership style. So this is what I believe is key, I think.
And looking a little bit more now to the future, right? I mean, as you said, understanding this end-to-end supply chain has hugely benefited you from the vantage point you have now in your position at Essity. You know, it'd also be remiss if we didn't talk about what's happening. The rate of change at the moment, including to supply chains, is going to be completely, I don't know, potentially revamped through AI. But again, given from the position that you stand and given the kind of resources infrastructure you have at Essity, how do you see AI, both in the short term and the long term, impacting a little bit about that, how we view that end-to-end supply chain, and obviously how that will help better deliver value to customers in the consumer space?
I read an article last week that the change we will have in the next 10 years, the rate of change in the next 10 years is the same of the last 100 years. That is unbelievable. If you think where we were 100 years ago, the
Yeah.
same change will be like in 10 years from now. So whatever I say will be different tomorrow. But I think that already artificial intelligence is helping us already now. So in the day-to-day work, I mean, we already have different pilot and different proof of concept. For example, in Essity, we are using across marketing. We are using a lot with the closed loop and supply chain. I mean, all the things where we had the manual adjustment to adjust regarding quality or process setting is not done anymore manually. It's with the closed loop with feedback directly on the line, but as well as using us to do some consumer research and market research in marketing, things that before were taking months and months, and now they are taking like 1 hour to do this, or even add some advertising. I mean, even reducing cost, but as well the key element that is the key outcome is speed. So you are getting a lot of speed, and our business is a speed game more than anything else. The one that is the first is the one that is getting a lot of benefits, and not just from a profitability point of view, but even more for getting the shopper with you. And this is where AI, I think it's helping today in the different area, and will be even more important in the future. The question is at which level will be a ticket to play, because today we will still across different companies be able to build competitive advantage. Companies are investing more, companies are investing less, companies are failing more because failure is part of the growth, is part of the development. But there will be a moment when we need to go to the next level, because I think that will be just a ticket to play where everyone will have some option that you can buy on the shelf, you know, and it's more how you can build really competitive advantage. And I do not believe that you should close yourself. You should always be open to external companies that are helping you to shape your roadmap, because let's say working in ecosystem is as well the future. I mean, I don't think anymore SE can develop things themselves, but being always open about others company, startup, or big company can help and support you in this development.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a particular category that you're particularly excited by in terms of how it's shaping up, given that you've worked across different categories in consumer?
I think there are category like incontinence, for example, where you go through. I mean, that seems to be like an old category, but in reality is a very low penetrated category. There is still a huge opportunity
Mm.
where you can move from easily, and that you can move from, let's say, helping the consumer for what is considered an issue today, that is the incontinence, to more, let's say, giving solution even to solve or to reduce as much as possible the problem. And this is where there are a lot of digital opportunities that can help. And this is a very low penetrated category, still is considered as a taboo. I think that still we have the strong leading brand that is called Tena, and I think this will be a category where we will continue to grow and invest in different area in the future. And then you have other category like consumer tissue, that you know we are the market leader. That is, let's say, a fully penetrated category. That is still, let's say, a category that is growing. Even small single digit is growing, but it's a fully commoditized business. You know, we always say toilet paper is a toilet paper. In
Yeah.
Italy, we say it's toilet paper is toilet paper. I mean, different countries, different country, but we have the responsibility as well as a Essity, as a leading company, to shape the business, to understand how to offer a superior experience to our consumer. And this is going a lot in the sustainability area, because you know, the production of paper, it's really consuming a lot of resources,
Mm.
water, energy, and other things. And I think making sustainable innovation is what will help and will make different us in the future. I give you just some idea on what we have done already. Coreless, so the toilet paper without the core inside. This type of innovation is going into bringing some value to the consumer using the toilet paper until the end. Or, for example, the toilet paper with straw inside, using alternative fiber that are more sustainable fiber. I mean, all these things is giving, let's say, is what will help us as well to decommoditize the business in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when hopefully AI really comes in to me, because I think there's plenty of innovations on sustainable materials. I mean, we work also in the packaging segment, and we see CPG and packaging are only working in collaboration to sort of try to tackle that huge issue. But it's always that kind of cost, right? And I think at the moment you still have consumers that are very cost sensitive. So we're hoping with the advent of AI and just the rate of innovation that hopefully that the cost of producing these kind of innovative materials, as you say, that have less of an environmental impact.
And this is, I think, what you say, it's very important because this is the challenge we have after COVID. So I think sustainability is now back, luckily, top in the agenda, but the consumer needs is clear. Consumer is not willing to compromise performance. So I'm okay to have sustainable solution, but no compromise in performance and no compromise in cost. And this is, I think, this mix of challenges where I think AI will help, needs to help a lot. So to go in that direction and to satisfy consumer needs.
Yeah. Well, I said, I think particularly the categories you're in, they're probably a little bit safer, with against some of the other categories that, are probably more ripe for disruption, given, I said, all the changes that are happening. I said, you said tissue paper incontinence. I mean, you have an aging population as well. And so there's some demographics that obviously are in your favor, but it's how do you win that, obviously, when you're also competing with other big players? So it'll be interesting to sort of see how those things shape up in the future. And look, shaping up about the future, I also wanted to touch on what you said at the beginning a little bit about your son, your king, a little bit, that you preparing him for the world, right? And seeing the journey you took as a leader. Firstly, what would be the advice you would give him, right? Again, you have this position where you have a view of what's going on in different markets, different geographies. I think particularly consumer goods leaders are so tapped into consumer behavior, obviously, but just in general, what people are feeling. And I think that sort of plays out with what they buy. What are they worried about? Should they be spending more or less money? I think you're very tapped in sometimes into what society is demanding. And I'm curious a little bit how that shapes the lessons that you're giving to your son specifically.
I think that this is let's say that I told you at the beginning. I mean, I had I have hard job. I had a really hard job in the past, but this is the really hardest job that I have at the moment to grow up him and to with the right lesson. And the thing, the best advice is to for sure traveling, but traveling not for traveling to know places, but to talk with the people, to meet different culture, to understand each other. I mean, we are living in a society with all the things that are happening. I don't know if something happened due to COVID or whatever, where people are not understanding and listening to each other. And we see that even from a conflict point of view, we are increasing the conflict in the last 3-4 years, and it's not really promising for the future. Living in a world where people understand each other, listen more to each other is what I really wish for the future. And we have to start with our kids, and this is what I really wish for him. When I have a strange game with my wife, what will be the job of our son? We try to figure out what all the standard job, but I'm sure that in 20 years from now, there will not be anymore the same jobs like it's today, absolutely. Because the world will be totally different. It's impossible to forecast anything for him or to wish anything for him. I think the only thing that we can wish is that he will be in a better world that we're living today, because again, I mean, currently is not the best environment to live, unfortunately, but by listening, by understanding, and by experience other culture, I think this can help him to have for sure a better life in the future.
Nice. Well, that's a fun game. I think I would personally play that game as well with my wife and sort of see. At the moment, what are you guessing your son to be versus your wife?
Of course, I wish for an engineer. She wish for a lawyer because this is our job. But I think my son, I think there will be a will, and my son will go back to do some job like my grandfather was doing, working in agriculture, because that is the future, I think. So it's having agriculture help with the help of artificial intelligence. I think this is what we will have in the future, in particular in this south of Italy, that is the part of Italy where I'm really attached. So, and that's my wish at the
Yeah.
end. So, and again, you never know. He
Ab-
will do what he likes. That is the
ab-
most important thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, look, I always like to end on a final note in terms of your advice to kind of any future leader that wants to maybe achieve the same kind of journey or go on the same kind of path you had gone. What would be your advice to anybody coming up in any organization?
Be curious, because it's easy to be satisfied with what you have, but be curious to area where you have not experienced, and be persistent. Because the first time you will go and say, I want to change function, so the first answer will be, are you crazy? Because of course it's the same. So, but be persistent and make choice. Because don't expect that others will make choice for you. You have to make your own choice. Too many times I hear talent telling me, I'm waiting my boss telling me what will be my next step. No way. You are the one deciding your next step. You are the one deciding and shaping your future, because there is no one that can make a better choice than you. So that's probably my best advice.
Right. Well, Andrea, thank you so much for the insights and yeah, your view on the world we live in today, and obviously your journey at from P&G up to Essity and sharing this with us. So thanks again.
Thank you very much. Thank you.